What brush am I using? I get asked quite often. And today, I'm going to make a brush from this classic comic book strip turned meme as of now. So let's go ahead and do it. First thing I'm going to do is just going to select it. I have a hotkey set for brushes. So mine is F2, but if you go to, I believe it's Edit, Define Brush Preset, bam, you got yourself a brush. So let's go ahead and delete this. This might be too big of a brush, but it's okay. I think we'll be okay. And then let's go ahead and lock this because I don't actually want to accidentally mess with it. And let's just do a couple things to this brush. Let's add a bit of size jitter. Yep, that will be fun. And we can probably, or size pen pressure, and we could probably go a little bit less aggressive. And then let's not change the angle. Let's just give it a bit of a transfer so there's some opacity to it. And let's put the brush closer together. And I think that's it. Let's not get too wacky with this, because that's kind of the goal. It's that I'm painting something potentially interesting using a brush that isn't that impressive, you know? And what I want to try to do here, and we'll even use the colors from this from this drawing to kind of help us out here. We'll start with this. Because one of the things that I think is interesting about people asking about brushes, and I'm gonna do like a longer video talking about tools, but this might be a multi-parter because I have a lot of thoughts on tools. And the first thing that I'll say is that tools aren't inherently a bad thing to worry about. Like obviously, you can build a table using a hammer, screwdriver, power tools, and each one of them will have a different advantage and disadvantage depending on what you're building. And to kind of blatantly think that none of this matters is pretty wild. Obviously, I'm using a tool right now. I'm using Photoshop, and to assume that Photoshop doesn't have any influence in my ability to paint is naive. But I think at some point you have to recognize that there are some stuff you need to acquire. Like there are certain skills that you ought to acquire to help you kind of overcome the larger challenges that I think you're dealing with. And again, this is something that I'll probably put together as like a long form video. Let me think about what I want to do here. Yeah, let's make this character something that actually engages with flames. Like this is the design of the character. Okay, so then let's give it like some sort of cool gas mask. And so for me, I love this thing. I used to do this all the time whenever I would get like asked about brushes. And I remember people to ask me like, what brush is that? What brush is that? Like very often. In fact, I was going through the comments responding to people, and somebody even mentioned like, hey, not everybody thinks that once they get a brush they'll all of a sudden become epic painters. And I think this is true. I don't think consciously people think this, but subconsciously they do. And they also made a good point that I thought was interesting, and they're probably listening now. But I thought it was interesting, which is like, people like to have like the walking in one's shoes, like the novelty of, using the tools that another artist uses kind of gives you a glimpse into their workflow. At least that's kind of what I think that they're getting at. And this I don't disagree with either. I think that's smart. I think that's great to kind of like play around with certain things. And I use an example of where when I used to play guitar, I originally started with looking at people who essentially the band that I loved. I looked at like what instruments they were using. We got those instruments, like Fenders were like the ones that we used a lot. And to me, that was great. It was a great way to kind of get started. But the difference here, I think, is that at the end of the day, like the guitar is not. I don't think a lot of people are going to immediately think that a guitar. Like there's something about brushes versus the guitar argument where I think people, when they see a guitar, they automatically know that they can't just start playing good, you know? Um, and I think if even if you have some basic skill with the guitar, I think you will recognize you could probably play really awesome on multiple guitars. What I would argue actually is like the amps, like the amps actually felt like they made a bigger difference than the guitar itself. I always felt like a better amp was what you needed. But I also began to realize just the other guitars that felt good in my hands. Like I like Ibanez's and Gibsons a lot. They like just naturally work better for my big old ginormous hands, you know, and I liked how heavy they felt in terms of their sounds. But I could play on any guitar really. And I think that this argument of novelty is absolutely a really good one to think about. But I do believe that the vast majority of people who do ask about what kind of brush we use are trying to see if there's something about that brush that they're going to unlock some superpowers. And I will be honest, I think that's true. I think some brushes can do that for you. Like, so I don't think that it's wrong to investigate, to keep looking and keep um, trying different tools to see which one fits for you. The only caveat is that if you keep doing this tools hunting, right? If you're constantly hunting for the tools, not recognizing that you are what I like to call like procrastinating, like positively procrastinating, you know, because you know you're just investing in what's the best tool, what's the best platforms, programs, you know. This is smart. You should do that at first. But at some point you got to like buckle down and start doing stuff, you know? And I think that this is the part that I start to catch people and I'm like, and I've had students who I would look at their work and I can tell that they just need to practice fundamentals. And they would like constantly be asking me though throughout the class, like, well, what brush are you using? Or like, how did you do that? Like, what did you do? I'm like, yeah. I'll talk to you about all this, but can you paint squares for me? You know, can you do like cubes? And they'll come back and they'll be like, yeah, the cubes were really hard to do. Like, but like, can you show me how, like what brushes and what tool? Like, I'm like, no, just keep painting cubes then. And they misdiagnosed their struggle with painting cubes as a process problem. Like there was something wrong with their process. When I was trying to attack, there is something wrong with their knowledge. They don't have enough of it. They don't have enough practice. They don't have enough mileage. No matter what I show them, it's going to not help them overcome this basic thing that they need to overcome, which is just getting a little bit better at drawing, a little bit better at rendering, like being more comfortable with the tools that they have and to acquire more skill. This is what I care more about, right? Whenever I'm dealing with individuals like that. And so whenever you are asking yourself, like, what brush is that? What tool is that? I don't think that that's wrong. I think you should absolutely be looking for new tools, but you also have to like pay attention to your overall progress. Are you getting better? You know, and if the answer is like no, you just continuously keep buying new brushes or trying new tools, but you're not actually making a meaningful movement in any real direction, then maybe just put the tools down for a second and just pick up the good old fashioned round brush and start learning how to paint. Maybe pick up some actual acrylics and some markers and stuff and just try to draw traditionally and see if you have skills there, you know? Try not to focus too much on whether you need a new brush or not if you're not really doing anything of power. My daughter, she's getting really good at art, and one of the things that she does is she just draws all the time and animates all the time, and she uses like multiple tools But the tool that she likes the most, that she's been using a lot more, is a tool that I introduced to, a software I introduced to on the iPad called ToonSquid. It's like an animation software. It's really good, really good. It has like all of the features that you would need, you know? And she just dominated on it. Like, at first she didn't like it because she didn't understand how certain things worked. It wasn't obvious to her. But I was like, dude, just trust me. Like, once you start to realize what you can do in this tool, then you will be moving light years ahead. And so she's okay. And so she's just kept with it. And then eventually she got really used to it. And now she loves it. She uses it all the time. But what is this tool doing that the other tools weren't doing? Right? Like, why was I so encouraging of this tool versus, let's say, something like Procreate Dreams or whatever? And it's simply because ToonSquid just lets you do more in a way of like, there's just more opportunities and more freedom in her, like, getting access to her own ability. Like, the reason why I like Photoshop, for instance, a lot, like, still Photoshop to this day is still my premier painting software, is because of how much options I have with it. I can do so much with it. You know? Like, I can photo bash, I can photo manipulate, I can use all sorts of cool, interesting brush types. I can have access to different color swatches. I have access to all these adjustments, tools, you know? So what it does is that the tool frees me up. It doesn't hold me back. You know what I mean? And I think whenever people are looking at brushes, like, let's say from like I can think of a couple people who have really awesome brushes, but they become really rigid in their paint style because the brushes say something about how they paint, and there is something about them that is still limiting. The reason why I've always loved the round brush, in fact, I'm not sure if you guys could see this. Let me go read this. I call it Old Faithful, just this round brush right here. In fact, let me save this before I lose it. This is fine. Old Faithful is because I can paint anything with that round brush. Anything. Because it has no limitations. It's omnidirectional. It doesn't have any texture. It's not limiting at all. It's very basic. But because of that basicness of it, it actually allows me to have a lot more freedom. So for instance, let me use a different brush here. That wasn't a brush, that was a mixer. Hold on, let me find one that's like clearly wild. Okay, this one. Okay. So this is a really cool brush. It's got a lot of texture, personality, but it's ironically going to cause me more trouble than solve problems. Perhaps towards the end of a painting, it could be cool to start using this because I have created already a lot of the foundational forms and now I just want to accent them. Cool. Maybe I want to make a painting very impressionistic. Like, I don't want to refine it. Then this could be a great brush to use. You know what I mean? But this is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, the brush, some tools and some brushes have too much of a limiting factor that actually prevents you from doing things that are as cool as you think you can do, you know? And so that's why I'm always like, don't get caught up on that because, you might really like it for certain certain use cases, but then it doesn't work for others. And if you aren't prepared to like deal with those others, like you don't know how to overcome those challenges, then you will absolutely be kind of stuck. You're very tool reliant. And so to me, I can paint with almost anything, including that brush that I just showed you that was probably a little bit more confrontational because of how textury it was, right? I still actually feel like I could probably do a good job with that brush. I just would approach it differently. I was like, okay, I would recognize its specific challenges that I would have to overcome. But anyway, hope the you guys enjoyed this demo. I'm gonna go work out. I didn't want to spend too much time on this painting. I actually wanted to do a quick one because I actually have no idea if today I will get time to come around to do like a longer form video like I was able to do during the week. This is the weekend. Gonna go hang out with the family. I have a lot of work still to catch up to. I have like this project that I'm working on with this team, and they're just waiting on me. I need to kind of like finish the final pieces of feedback that I've gotten, and it's just it's very tedious work because it's just a lot of correctional stuff, but it's very enjoyable, and it's gonna be cool if I can pull this off. But we'll see. I just need to sit down and do it. So I'm gonna go work out first, get my blood flowing, get my daily activity out of the way before I stay sedentary for the next several hours before we go out. We're gonna go watch that Snow White movie. For those of you who are watching this in the future, they made a remake of the Snow White movie. Depending on when you're watching this, you might not even know that that's true. Yeah, I'll let you guys know how I think about it too. Maybe I'll make a video about what I feel about the movie, give you my honest review. But I'm not a movie reviewer, so I'm not going to. I'm most likely not going to give a scathing review for the sake of clickbait and what you call it, uh, getting the algorithm. Like I'm just gonna tell you, why not? Just make some content. And maybe it'll be interesting from a perspective of somebody who works in the industry who could have potentially worked on the Snow White movie. You know what I mean? So yeah, giving some feedback and thoughts on it could be cool, but maybe not. Because I also just like watching movies, even if it wasn't good, I still enjoyed the experience. There's very few movies. I'm trying to think of a movie that I went and watched. I was like, damn, I wish I didn't watch this. That's very rare. Where I'm like, damn, this was truly a waste of my time. I think there was one movie that did that where I was like, damn, like I've never felt this way, this much disdain for a movie as I do now. Like for instance, like I didn't like the Star Wars, the latest Star Wars movies, specifically the the newer ones. And I have some thoughts about what I think they could have done better. Maybe I'll do a video about my thoughts of what that movie could have been. Just my opinion on it, though. Not, I'm not a writer, so I don't really want to even pretend that I could have done a better job. But I'm curious if you guys think it would be cool. So I'd love to talk about it. But yeah, like I didn't like them, like the newer movies, like the Force Awakens series. But I didn't hate them either. Like I didn't want to. I didn't feel like I had to go online and talk crap about any of it. I would do it behind closed doors with like my friends and stuff, like just shoot the shit. But I do that with like lots of stuff, even stuff I love. But I remember just like man thinking like this is man it could have been so much better. Like that's how I felt. And then I just went about my day. I did. At the end of it, I was just like, cool, whatever. It was great. Star Wars is cool still. Like there's still some cool stuff that came out of that movie. But I wasn't like, I got to write a blog about this. That's just not in me. There's definitely people that feel this way, and kudos to them. But it's just not something I want to like publicly go out and land blast. Again, I might have some personal feelings I might talk about with friends and colleagues. And like I said, I might do like a version of this where I say, well, what I think it could have done, and just see what you guys think. Because I could be wrong. Maybe you guys would disagree too, and that's totally fair. But yeah, if they made new Star Wars movies now, like I'd probably still go watch them. I didn't feel that strongly about the shows. I think after I watched Obi-Wan, I was just like, ugh, all right, I'll just watch some other TV shows. That feels like I can't just be sitting and invest my time for days on end. Like I'm trying to draw and be entertained, and I am not being entertained right now. So usually TV shows, I'm in the context of like sitting and working. Like I just started watching. I never watched Arrested Development. I heard a lot of great things about it, and I'm just like, God, this show's so funny. And I was just laughing, and I'm like, this is great television. I've been watching House with my daughter. It's about like that doctor who's kind of an asshole, but he's like a genius. Like such a great premise, because doctors are typically nice or supposed to be nice, but he's just like a dick. One line he said that I thought was freaking crazy. It was so good. when somebody was like, they're like worried about this little girl, and he wanted to amputate her in case her infection spreads. And you're gonna leave this little girl crippled if you do that. And he's like, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, boo hoo, like yeah, because cute children don't ever get like flesh eating bacteria, you know, making a point of like flesh eating bacteria doesn't give a fuck about how cute somebody is, you know. And I was like, ooh, dang, that's tough. That's a tough thing to argue against because he's trying to save her life. He doesn't care that she's going to be amputee, you know. Luckily, it didn't end up happening. She was fine. But it's just one of those things where he's just so focused on saving lives rather than anything else. And I thought that's such a great premise. Yeah, me and my daughter are just watching that show. I'm just like, damn, dude, this show's so good too. I remember watching bits of it here and there. But yeah, like the Star Wars TV shows, some of them are really great. But movies are different. I just like to sit down and eat popcorn and watch them for 2 hours. That feels like I'm spending my leisure time to do something to kind of relax. Whether it's like something I like or not. And again, I can't think. I'll try to think about it. Maybe if I remember and I come back, I'll tell you. But there was one movie where I was like, I kind of want to just fucking walk out of this movie. I'm trying to think of that movie. God, now it's killing me. All right, anyway. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna go work out. I'm gonna move some metal plates from one end of the room to another end of the room. Over and over again. Cheers.